There are two major disability programs at the federal level. There's the Social Security Disability Insurance Program, SSDI, and there's the Supplemental Security Income Program, SSI. And these two programs cover about 6% of the working age adult population in the US. They're big. They're meant to cover people who have experienced a work-limiting disability. They have the same medical criteria, so you have to be hit hard by a disability and that prevents you from working. And the difference is just that SSI is means tested, you have to be low income, and to get onto SSDI, you have to have a work history. But beyond that, they both are similar, and they both are broadly part of the catch-all term disability programs. And so we focus on disability programs, and we ask how those disability programs affect financial distress, how they affect financial outcomes, and how we should think about those programs differently when we evaluate them in terms of those kind of benefits. Most of the research on these programs is focused on their effect on labor supply, meaning if you're allowed onto SSDI or SSI, and so you get a check every month from the government and you get health insurance, does that make you less likely to find a job on your own? And those studies are important, but they only focus on the costs of these programs, on what economists call the moral hazard cost. We think understanding the programs involves not just understanding the cost, but also the benefits. What our research has shown is that when you give people SSDI or SSI, when you allow them onto the programs, they become less likely to declare bankruptcy, less likely to end up in foreclosure. We see a drop in the sale of a home, and we see an increase in the purchase of a home. So all markers of what we might call financial distress go down. What we're really after here is what we call a causal effect, meaning we want to know for a given person, if we allow them onto the programs, what's their life going to look like versus if for that same person we deny them from the programs. So that's what we're after, which is hard to do. In the medical world, they run randomized controlled trials to get at that. So you'll give some people randomly selected the placebo, and some people, you'll give them the medication, and that's how you can isolate a causal effect. In our research, it's hard to do that. We can't run a randomized controlled trial here. But what we can do is study a natural experiment. And so that's where we spend the bulk of our effort here, is to find a natural experiment that can isolate the true effect of SSDI and SSI, even though the real world is messy and lots of people are kind of applying or not applying for different reasons. What we found is that the Social Security Administration has a few rules or a few guidelines that it gives examiners. So it says to people, to its examiners, if the applicant is above age 50, you should be a little bit more lenient and more likely to allow them onto the program because they are older, and so it's more difficult for them to be retrained. If they're above age 55, you should be even more lenient because they're in an older age category, and so they should be even harder to retrain. And so for us, that's a natural experiment because that means we've got people who are just under age 50 or 55 and people who are just above ages 50 and 55. And those are similar people, but one group is more likely to be allowed onto the programs than the other. One thing we're very interested in is that when it comes to foreclosure in particular, foreclosure is an outcome that not only affects the person himself or herself who's either losing their house or not, but it also affects that person's neighbors. When people are allowed onto SSDI or SSI, they get a monthly check, and then they get health insurance. They get either Medicare or Medicaid, depending on which program they're on. And that's a big helping hand to people who are in severe distress. And so what we see is that there's a drop in these bad adverse effects or bad adverse outcomes. We see a drop in foreclosure, a drop in bankruptcy, a drop in home sales. And what seems to be going on is that people are in better shape financially as a result of being on these programs. That's perhaps not a surprise, but it's important to estimate the effect and to add it to all these calculations about the cost benefits of these programs.